Nebraska is #1 national champion in beef production. The state ranks #1 when it comes to cattle on feed. We talk issues with Congressman Adrian Smith. And drones could soon be flying over Nebraska fields. We'll explain more on the rules and regulation changes that could be in effect. And we talk taxes. It's all tonight on NTV's Grow. Lawmakers confirmed Greg Ibaugh as director of Nebraska's Department of Agriculture on Friday. Senators voted 29-2 to confirm Ibaugh, who Governor Pete Ricketts reappointed to the job. Now, last month, you may remember, animal welfare groups urged lawmakers not to confirm him, saying his department failed to regularly inspect and follow up on inhumane puppy mills. Thank you for joining us. Well, Nebraska takes the top ranking when it comes to cattle on feed. USDA National Ag Statistics Service report shows Nebraska claiming that #1 spot with 2.55 million head, followed by Texas, then Kansas. Nebraska Department of Agriculture Director Greg Ibaugh credits the synergy created by cattle, corn, and ethanol sectors in the state. And one thing that's really promoting these Nebraska feedlots is the Cattle Feeders Directory. Director Ibaugh says it is a popular tool for those interested in finishing their animals in Nebraska. The online directory features Nebraska feedlot operations, including contact information, capacity, where they source their cattle, financing and feed options, marketing, and value-added programs. The directory can be found on the department's website. And many of our cattle producers had to brave the elements here this week. There's snow on the ground, but it was a bitter week last week with temperatures and blowing snow. Well, many of you had a snow day, but a snow day for a cattle producing family and farmers, it has a whole different meaning. NTV's Alyssa Willard caught up with some of our farmers and ranchers.
And when conditions get rough, it means more work and less play for farmers as well.
We hauled hay trailers out to the cows, gave them something to stand behind out of the wind. Nobody would like to have to stand out in that weather the way the wind has been the last few days. You got to give them energy. You got to give them something to stand behind.
And snow days aren't something his boys look forward to. That means more work as extra help is needed on the farm.
Snow days, we have to do more work than school days because there's more time to be around my dad, so cleaning snow, like moving it, he feeds the cows out there. And
I check water.
A new report says groundwater levels have continued to drop, but it all depends on where you're standing in the state. State geologist says from spring 2003 to spring 2014, groundwater levels continued to decline, but the easing of drought conditions for the eastern half of the state and better water use practices moderated the declines. Groundwater levels rose in some areas. For example, in northern Colfax County, the groundwater level dropped more than 20 feet in spring 2012. By spring 2014, water levels rose to 10 feet in the same area. One of the biggest challenges Nebraska farmers and ranchers say they have to face is the tax collector. NTV's Steve White follows the legislature and has more on this property tax debate.
The new governor says he heard about it throughout his campaign. Skyrocketing land values have raised property taxes to an unsustainable level, and many lawmakers agree.
But if that kind of thing would...
This is really the best opportunity that I've seen in a long, long time.
Farmers talking taxes over coffee is nothing new,
especially for schools.
But members of Nebraska Farm Bureau say what is new is the political climate at the state capitol, with a governor eager to cut property taxes on farmland.
We have only about 3% of the population in the state of Nebraska that are farmers and ranchers that are paying over a fourth of the property tax in the state of Nebraska.
The price of farm ground has skyrocketed. Taxes have gone up too. But farmers say just because the land is worth more doesn't mean they're making any more money. For starters, Farm Bureau wants taxes to be calculated at 55% of what the land is valued at, instead of the current 75%.
When I look at the ranchers out in western Nebraska, when almost half of their gross dollars to go pay for a property tax, it's really some inequities going on out there.
Farm Bureau also backs a proposal that would put millions into property tax credits, which senators say would benefit all homeowners.
Only 25% of the total of this goes to ag land and ranch land. So remember, 3/4 of this still goes to everybody else in the state.
A third proposal would send 20% of income tax dollars back to local school districts.
Additional income to counties and schools in local areas, particularly in schools where they get no state aid today.
This would be a direct 20%.
Farm Bureau members think this is the year it'll be more than just coffee shop talk.
So we believe that this is the time.
So what happens now? The legislature has been holding public hearings, taking testimony for and against these various proposals. Observers think it's likely they will combine elements of the different bills into one, a compromise package for the legislature to advance to the governor's desk later this session.
Many of you may be enjoying the lower prices for gas. Well, those plunging prices are having an impact on agriculture all across the state. It helps ease the pain of low grain prices for growers and boosting profits for cattle ranchers. Average diesel prices for 2015 are forecast to be about $1 lower than last year. Consumers shouldn't expect to see lower prices at the supermarket because transportation cost constitutes only a small slice of those prices. Climate change cost soybean farmers an estimated $11 billion over the past 2 decades. That's according to potential yields in a new study. It shows U.S. farmers increased soybean yields in the past 20 years by about 1/3 of a bushel per acre per year. Those gains of about 0.8% a year resulted from adoption of higher yielding soybean varieties and improved farming methods. But the gains would have been 30% higher if it weren't for higher temperatures and changing rainfall patterns. With profit margins razor thin, 2015 may be quite a lean year for farmers. Now, NTV's Steve White explains that the income for 2015 may actually be less than half of what it was 2 years ago. Here's more.
This is our soil probe.
From devices farmers bury in the soil to cloud-based data solutions.
That plugs into different makes and models of farm machinery.
During years of record profits, many upgraded their technology.
We've had a chance to invest in some of that equipment. Now crops are low value, and so we're going to use it to squeeze every last little bit of margin out of that to stay in business.
A new report shows farm income in Nebraska dropped almost 40% last year. That's a decline of $3 billion. At this trade show, vendors are showing farmers how to be more efficient.
When input costs are so high, especially water costs and fertilizer costs, we can help guys manage those type of productions as far as maybe putting on less water.
All the gadgets farmers have bought in recent years may do more than improve their yields.
Farmers have been producing a lot of data. It's another crop in our minds, and we'd like them to be able to capitalize on that crop.
GPS, yield monitors, and more give farmers a look at their crops like never before.
And that's the great thing about today's technology is that you have the ability to grab it from your cell phone.
Lon Bone says it enables him to make sure he's not wasting seed or fertilizer, and especially water, knowing exactly when to irrigate.
Before it was by guess and by golly, and
the neighbors got his pivot going.
The neighbors got his pivot going, yeah.
The skies over the fields in Nebraska may soon have drones above them. Now, the regulations right now are a little murky in areas, especially when it comes to using them for agriculture. Now, there could be some changes on the way to clear up some questions. NTV's Megan Johnson explains.
Ag technology users and experts are talking about what farmers, ranchers, and crop consultants can do right now when it comes to using UAVs. But the rules can be a little murky depending on why the machine goes into the sky.
As interest in unmanned aircraft systems takes off, it's farms and ranches being targeted.
The unmanned aircraft industry itself, through studies, has estimated agriculture to be the single largest market segment.
Much of it's research and demonstration now, but as much as 80% of drone applications across the country could be geared toward ag.
I can drop those flights into Google Earth.
Agronomists like Brittany Bolte say a bird's eye view offers more information from a different perspective.
Diseases, insect pressure, anything like that, planter skips, sprayer misses going on in the field.
But right now, the Federal Aviation Administration allows mostly hobby use, where the images and data a UAV can gather aren't used to make money, which creates some gray areas where ag production is concerned.
There are questions about the extent to which a farmer themselves individually are going to invest in this equipment and learn to fly it as compared to consultants.
Bolte uses hers to take photos, not charging for it as part of her business to stay in the hobby category.
These two sensors here.
But with available tech like infrared, commercial use is a new frontier.
Being able to see where there's an area, figure out where that's at, and then go out there and ground truth what the problem really is invaluable.
The FAA does grant case-by-case exemptions for some commercial uses, but as of this week, only 24 in total have been okayed, with more than 340 requests pending. They are writing a new small UAS rule clarifying regulations and maybe opening up some ag opportunities, but a draft isn't expected until sometime this year, and a finalized rule isn't likely for another year or two after that.
Stay with us here as we talk with Congressman Adrian Smith about some issues in agriculture and about the district being highly ranked when it comes to ag production. Also, we have your grow forecast just ahead. Stay with us.